what's up guys? We're gonna debunk a video that came out actually back in June. So for the type of people who regularly watch political commentary on YouTube, this is like old news because a month on the internet is an extremely long time. But this video never broke like national news. Like I thought it would be much bigger outside of the internet than it was, but it wasn't. So I still feel like it's relevant to talk about. And the fact that so many people commented on this really racist video and said, this isn't racist, what's wrong with this video, this is perfectly fine, shows that it still needs to be addressed because there are still plenty of people who believe the problems in this video are true. And they go around their lives thinking this thing is completely fine to think. And just so, okay, so let's get into it. So this German girl called Rage After Storm, that's her YouTube name, did a video called Race is Real, where basically she, in a nutshell, linked IQ levels to races. The problem wasn't that she was saying that different races score differently on IQ tests, like Asians score the highest, whites score the second, blacks and Hispanics towards the bottom. That's not controversial. Everyone knows that. You can look it up. Studies constantly show this. But the problem is that she is attributing these differences to race. She is literally being racist because she is judging someone by the color of their skin, saying the reason why you scored this on IQ test is because of your race. She doesn't think this is racist. Lots of people don't think that's racist. A lot of other people, including people that are anti-liberal, anti-PC culture, are like, yeah, that is racist. You're literally judging someone by the color of their skin. This isn't an instance of a liberal crying racist when someone else who's not a radical liberal isn't doing something racist. I'm taking the literal definition, not any of the stupid definitions of racism that liberals have made up recently, like racism is prejudice plus power. No. We're not going by a definition. We're going by the only definition of racism that has ever existed and that I will ever use and what people should use, because that is how it's always been. Judging someone by the color of their skin, and that is what she was doing. So that's the whole controversy on this video, is that she didn't attribute the differences in IQ testing scores to anything else. It was only race. That's why she thought people score differently. It's just like environmental factors. How could you possibly not think of that? So let's go in the video.
Mama, hast du schon meine Wehrmachtuniform gewaschen?
Ich wasche doch eine helle Wäsche.
Ah, scheiße. Kannst du nicht eine extra Wäsche für mich reintun? Nur diesmal, ich brauch's echt.
Oh, okay. Nur einmal. Diesmal.
Oh, danke, Mama.
Sag mal, läuft deine Kamera?
Oh, scheiße.
Was that supposed to be funny? Because it wasn't. It was just pathetic. What she's trying to do is paint the outrage over her video. She knew she was going to get outraged when she made this video. So she's like mocking people who are going to call this racist. By joking that she's a Nazi, like ha ha ha, really funny. It's just like, we don't think you're a Nazi, but you are literally judging people by the color of their skin, which is why we're calling you racist. We're not calling you racist because we are virtue signaling or because we're pro PC culture. You can take a look at videos on my channel. I bash the shit out of radical liberals. I hate PC culture. I hate them clamping down on what I should say or what I shouldn't say. So to paint critics of her video as just PC cultural radicals, no, that's not it at all. Because lots of YouTubers, including Andy Worski, which I'll leave a link to his video that he did, he is rabidly anti-socialist warrior. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm anti-social justice warrior, anti-PC culture just like him. But the fact that you are painting him as pro-PC culture when lots of his videos is bashing PC culture. It's just like, what the fucking hell are you talking about? Do you even watch his fucking channel?
So, after many of you have speculated about my stance on race, especially my recent one, I've decided to make a video about it. Because heck, I love talking about things that will probably get me kicked off YouTube and every other social media website.
So she's like acting again like the only reason why this video is going to get into trouble or why it got taken down is because she's triggering people. She's saying the truth, and that's triggering radical liberals and people who like PC culture. And it's just like, no, No, you are completely missing the criticism of your video. You are just... And the fact she acts so spunk. Just listen to her video. The way she talks, all high and mighty, and just is so prim and proper, and just so sophisticated and so smart. You know, throughout the entire video, it's just like your head is so far up your ass. You think you are the shit. You think you were like laying down truths and like bashing radical liberals in their safe spaces, and they're crying. It's just like, that is completely not the situation at all. You lack so much self-awareness. It is so fucking funny.
Racism, it's an interesting lexeme. I remember being first taught about it when I was a wee little kid, and we were talking about the slave trade, you know, in Africa and all that other shit. So at the time, I only saw racism as a thing that white people did to black people.
Why the fuck would you think that was a situation? Who the fuck told you that? Like, what? I mean, I know there are radical liberal teachers who teach that to some kids. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like that idea that only white people can be racist towards blacks. I'm not denying that like people think that. There are millions of people who think that, unfortunately. But it's just like, what are you talking about? There are not other people. Not everyone received that education. When I learned about it in school, none of my teachers, even though they're almost all liberal, none of them said only racism is one race towards another, or only whites can be racist. Like, no, racism is just judging someone by the color of their skin. Anyone can do it. Anyone can be a victim of it. It's just, you are making no sense in this. Just absolutely no sense.
Despite the fact that I as a kid was racially profiled for being German, for example, I got called a Nazi on the playground, etc., I never actually assumed that that was a case of racism. I just thought, heck, that's just people being assholes, right? Which leads me to think, despite having known what racism was, I still wasn't able to put A and B together. Which then gives me another question to whether or not the term racism actually properly exists. Racism is a made-up word. Well, heck, every word is a made-up word. We use words to explain new things that we describe to often make our lives a heck of a lot easier. And then we use those words to accuse people of things to help our own selfish narrative of getting our point across.
She views every single use of the word, someone calling someone racist, as getting your own point across. You're selfish to perpetuate your own narrative. So that's what she said. She didn't say sometimes it's used in this situation, sometimes it's used in this situation, sometimes it's used to clamp down on free speech, sometimes it's actually used to describe racist things. She didn't say that at all. She says, no, racism is only used selfishly to perpetuate your own narrative. That's what she thinks. That's what she just said it. She just said it. She says racism doesn't actually exist, is that people just use that as a word to shut down other people. It's like, yes, sometimes that happens. I'm not going to deny that. She keeps on making points that no one is perpetuating. She's like, yes, that's true. Okay, but there are other situations in which racism is used. And the fact that you're denying that just means you don't know what you're talking about.
So, like, what did Milo say that was violent in a rape threat?
It is violent. That's what he says, the rhetoric, racist, sexist bullshit, that is violent. Racist, sexist.
The same goes with transphobia, Islamophobia, and many other words that are used for fear-mongering.
So yeah, she's shown an example in which a radical social justice warrior is using the word race to try to shut down someone's speech, in this case Milo's speech. That she's not refuting his point, she's saying, well, he's racist and sexist, therefore he's wrong. In the discussion, boom. It's like, yes, that happens. Not gonna deny that. You have video evidence, that happens all the time on the internet. You know, just everyone on the fucking planet knows that radical social justice warriors use that, but other times people actually judge each other based on their race, and then people say, hey, that's racist, so stop doing it. But she is not even saying that's a thing. That doesn't happen in her narrative, in her worldview. That just doesn't happen.
And words like these all lie under the same hood. They are used to force people to ignore why we might feel uneasy about people that look or are a little bit different.
Why are you uneasy when you're around people who don't look and act like you? Like, what? I thought you said you weren't a racist. That you're not judging people by the color of their skin, yet you see people who look different than you, and then you get uneasy. It's like, yeah, you're judging people by the color of their skin, and that is causing you to be uneasy. It's just like, I have no idea how she honestly thinks that she's not a racist when she is, one, judging people by the color of their skin, and then she admits that she is uneasy around people who look differently than her. It's just like, that is literally the definition. What do you think the definition of racism is? Oh, she already answered. She doesn't think it exists. The word is made up. It's... So she can't be racist because racist doesn't exist. It's only used to shut down other people. It's only used by the radical left to shut down people giving truth.
And notice how these words were mostly created by minorities or people who felt oppressed. These words gave people power that would inevitably cause other people a retraction of rights. For example, when we speak of racism, the overuse of the word has allowed affirmative action to be implemented in our society. Or when we use the word sexism, the use of that word has allowed women to gain more custody rights.
Again, not denying that that is the case. She is correct in those two examples. But again, what does that have to do with her video and her opinions? Nothing. She just keeps on dodging the point that her critics are saying you're judging people by the color of their skin. You are literally doing that. You're saying the reason why you score differently in this IQ test is because of your race, not because of environmental factors, cultural factors, financial reasons, of anything else, any other factor that can determine how good you score on an IQ test. You know, whether someone is just good at taking tests or not. There's plenty of smart people who can't take tests very well. It doesn't mean they're stupider than someone who can take a test good and therefore gets a better score. None of that enters her equation at all. She doesn't talk about any of that. All is just IQ, race, boom.
Despite the fact that they probably have been terrible mothers or triggered a divorce for no reason. Obviously, I wouldn't deny that any type of racism is still prevalent in our society, but that's not really my point. My point is, why do we need to use the word racism to describe the development of African or some Middle Eastern countries? Let's look at the continent of Africa, for example. What we're told as we little youngsters is that the white man has caused every single issue that exists in Africa.
Only radical social justice warriors say that. Radical leftists say that. And she thinks that everyone thinks that. Everyone is taught this. It's like, no, what you're doing is taking a fringe political opinion, a radical opinion that is far from the mainstream. The vast majority of people in the US, for example, just picking the country I live in, do not believe that the whites created every single problem in Africa. Some people do. Again, don't get me wrong. I keep on having to make these points that not all, not 100%, not every single time, because that is how reality works. Reality is rarely, every single time this happens, something happens. You know, every single time this term is used, this is a situation that's used in. It's just like, no, that's not the fucking case. People act differently. People say different things. Different situations happen. Then what specifically happened in your life? You think, oh, this is the way I experience the world. That means the whole world is like this. And everyone experiences just the same. It's like, no, that's how sheltered your mind is. You think that since you were taught that only whites can be racist towards blacks and that the white people cause all the problems in Africa ever, you think that everyone was taught that. And she's like, no, talk to other people. Apparently you're in this little bubble of your own stupidity. You don't talk to other people and you're just like, wow, they weren't taught that. You know, my cousin in another state wasn't taught that. So maybe this doesn't apply to every single situation of the word racist. But she never even thinks about that.
And that we are the reason that they are not developed. Could you believe it? Some people actually still think that Africa would look like this if the white man wouldn't have interfered.
Really, nigga?
But what we weren't told as we little youngsters is that Africans were enslaving, killing, and raping people long before the white man arrived. Despite the aggression probably increasing due to slavery, the white man still did a lot of good things for Africa. Fun story. During the Atlantic slave trade, Europeans could not penetrate into Africa for very long or very far due to the threat of malaria and other tropical... And that we are the reason that they are not developed. Could you believe it? Some people actually still think that Africa would look like this if the white man wouldn't have interfered.
Really, nigga?
But what we weren't told as we little youngsters is that Africans were enslaving, killing, and raping people long before the white man arrived. Despite the aggression probably increasing due to slavery, the white man still did a lot of good things for Africa. Fun story. During the Atlantic slave trade, Europeans could not penetrate into Africa for very long or very far due to the threat of malaria and other tropical diseases.
Again, this is true. But what does this have to do with her point of her video? Nothing! She spends this entire time defending herself, judging people by the color of their skin, and saying that some races are just smarter than others, by constantly talking about things that have nothing to do with her judging people by the color of her skin, or saying that some races are smarter than others. It's just, what kind of defense is that? It's like a person goes on trial for murder, and he's just like, yeah, well, I cleaned the house, and I ran some errands, and which he actually did, and the judge is sitting there like, We're not talking about that. We're talking about the fact that you're on trial for murder. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Can you get back to the point? We're 1/3 through this video, and she has not defended any of her actions.
Diseases. The sailing ships were on a timetable to catch the best winds for the year. They would buy their slaves from blacks on offshore islands. Then they took off before the hurricane season. Blacks were completely complicit in the slave trade and actually benefited from it. For the Americans and Europeans' involvement in it, the slave trade would have not occurred without the black people's permission, including their involvement and approval. Besides, we do forget that it was whites who largely ended slavery. Another fun fact, Arab slave traders had actually enslaved more people than the European slave traders did. Blacks had rounded up one another and sold each other to the Arab slave traders too. Not to mention, us Europeans were also enslaved by the Arabs. Where's our affirmative action? Oh right, white people are fucking terrible, I forgot. Even though it was the British Empire that first abolished the slave trade, losing a heck of a lot of money and lives in the process. But okay. White men. But white men people still ruined Africa. Actually, the sailing ships were on a timetable to catch the best winds for the year. They would buy their slaves from blacks on offshore islands. Then they took off before the hurricane season. Blacks were completely complicit in the slave trade and actually benefited from it. For the Americans and Europeans' involvement in it, the slave trade would have not occurred without the black people's permission, including their involvement and approval. Besides, we do forget that it was whites who largely ended slavery. Another fun fact, Arab slave traders had actually enslaved more people than the European slave traders did. Blacks had rounded up one another and sold each other to the Arab slave traders too. Not to mention, us Europeans were also enslaved by the Arabs. Where's our affirmative action? Oh right, white people are fucking terrible, I forgot. Even though it was the British Empire that first abolished the slave trade, losing a heck of a lot of money and lives in the process. But okay. But white men. But white men people still ruined Africa.
So she has these radical social justice warriors that she's making fun of, as saying that these are my critics. These are the people who are saying I'm racist. And it's like, yes, they are. And social justice warriors and radical liberals are part of your critics, but not all of them. In fact, most of them, I saw most people critiquing her video who do not identify as radical leftists and radical social justice warriors. In fact, they regularly attack those ideologies. It's just like, you cannot accurately represent your critics or the people who disagree with you. You can't do it. You have in this mind that anyone who criticizes me is just a stupid radical, liberal, social justice warrior, and then so that's how you just ignore all the criticism of your videos by saying, oh, it's just virtue signaling, it's just people just getting triggered, whatever. It's just like, this girl, she's really young, I don't know how young she is, but she has no idea how the world works, just no fucking clue. All she knows is her life experiences, and then the stupid little studies she finds online that are severely flawed, that agree with the narrative that she wants to push, and then she thinks she just knows everything, and just knows everything about race, and just is so fucking smart, and that's why she acts like a total bitch in this video, just so smug, because she thinks she knows everything. It's just like, you have no clue, you have no idea, and people are trying to tell you, you just say, nope, they're just radical socialist warriors, I'm not listening to them.
Actually, when the European Empire stepped away from Africa, Africa practically went down the shitter. I mean, who did they elect in their first democratic election? Surely they must have elected someone who liberated the country and proved many rights for blacks. No.
Yes, some Africans voted for dictators, or people that would become dictators. Guess what? Every single other race has done the exact same thing. Asians did it, Hispanics did it, white people did it. So what's your point? You act like Africans are the only one who did this, and therefore they're the reason why Africa is shit, and they're dumber than all the other races because they voted for dictators and horrible people. It's just like, every single other race the exact same thing, which leads me to my point that all races are equal. We all do stupid shit, we all do smart shit. You know, there were just millions of us in every single race, so to categorize one action and apply it to a whole race is just so dumb.
Zimbabweans managed to elect a genocidal cockbag, aka Robert Mugabe. I mean, if that's not a case of extreme racism, Then what does the word racism even mean? Let us delve into the crime rate of America. About 13% of Americans are black, according to the estimates from the US Census Bureau. And yes, according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, black offenders committed 52% of homicides. This was in data recorded between 1980 and 2008.
Again, how many times do I have to go through this point? Yes, that is true. The stats are, she's not making up those stats. What is she's incorrect in is that she is attributing those statistics to race. She's saying because black people are black, that's the reason why they commit 50% of the murders in the US. And just like, no, there is no genetic predisposition to murder. It's because each individual is a person of agency who can make his or own decisions. And so you have to take a look at each case and look into each black person as to why they did this. Usually it's the culture they're brought up in. If white people were brought up in the same culture, which a lot of white people are brought up in this gangster culture, that lots of people commit murders in this specific culture. Lots of white people do too. A lot of Asians, lots of Hispanics. It's like race doesn't matter, and your environment and your upbringing affects you more than your race. Wow, just what a fucking coincidence. Like what people, your critics have been saying in your video this entire fucking time.
Only 45% of the offenders were white. In 2013, the FBI reported that 38% of murders were committed by blacks. However, only 31.1% were committed by whites. In 29.1% of cases, the perpetrator's race was unknown. Over 3 years of data from 2011 to 2013, 38.5% of people arrested for murder, robbery, manslaughter, rape, and aggravated assault were black. This is evidence from official police reports that blacks are more likely to commit crimes than white.
Okay, we're about halfway through this video, but seriously, I'm just going to end up saying the same thing over and over again as I've already started doing, because she just continues on this tirade of saying all these stats and all this historical information that has nothing to do with what her critics are saying. She is just completely not self-aware at all. The thing I'll end with is that the studies she points to that show that certain races score different in IQ tests, the methods they used in these studies were severely flawed. She acts like it's because it was a study done by some university or some really important group, therefore it's valid. Automatically, without doubt, without questioning it, and she attributes her opinions based on that study. And it's just like, you know as well as I do that some studies are complete and utter shams. Radical leftists use these stupid little studies that they are just severely flawed, not logical and rational at all, to justify their stupid opinions, and radical right-wingers are doing the exact same thing. But she doesn't care about that. What she cares about is, does this study confer to my opinion on this subject, race in this instance? It's like, yes it does, therefore I'm going to take it and use it in my video. And it's just like, did you even look at how they did this study and how flawed they are? I took Andy Worski's live stream was much better in explaining why this study was flawed. I'll leave a link to it so you can watch that to see why the study, which is complete shit. And therefore, that's why her opinion is complete shit, because it's based on a study that's complete shit. It's kind of like people, a good chunk of the US population have this fear that vaccines cause autism. You know, it's not the majority of people, it's a good chunk of it. And it's just like, this whole stupid opinion is completely not based on reality whatsoever. It's all based on one study that was done decades ago that was severely flawed. And look at all the trouble this one stupid study caused, because people look at this study and they freak out and they don't look at it through the scientific methods or how social sciences work, and they would realize that, well, actually they messed up a bit, so that's not exactly true. And since it's the only study that ever said that, therefore you can eliminate that because it was done wrong, so therefore there are no studies that have done correctly that links vaccines to autism. It's just like, that's what we're saying in this situation. You're saying that IQ is because of race, and then you point to studies that are severely flawed and have other factors that they don't contribute to, and they don't factor into the equation, and then you wonder why your worldview is so fucking dumb. Lastly, again, I said this before, we're not denying that the IQ tests, that you know, that Asians score high as whites score higher than blacks, Latinos. We're not saying that that isn't the case. What we're saying is, what is the fucking point? There is literally no point in saying these things unless you're trying to justify your racist views or trying to justify your opinion that some races are better than others. Because This IQ test is just one measurement of intelligence, and even then, it's just a test. Intelligence is an intangible thing you can't touch, you can't have. Like, so to think that there is some empirical, objective, non-cultural related way to test someone's intelligence. IQ is the closest we can get to that, but that's just one measurement. There are people who I know who score very high in IQ tests, who in the real world are dumb as shit. Why is that? Because they're book smart. They're not world smart. They're not street smart. They're just really good at memorizing facts and taking tests. And it's just like, okay, so that's all you've proven. That's in this entire video. Let's say the study you cited, let's say it's hypothetically correct. Then all you're saying is, in this IQ test developed mostly by white Westerners usually score better than blacks and Latinos. And that has jack shit to do with anything we do in our real lives. It is absolutely nothing. You know, I would rather hire a person, like for jobs, for example, that is more can adapt better to new things, can learn things really quick, you know, than a person who has a higher IQ than them, because that higher IQ is not going to be useful in the workplace if you can't adapt and use new software and new things really fast. You know, it's just like, okay, what is the point? There's literally no point in saying this, unless you're saying that some races are smarter than others, and here's my proof. Well, we already show that's wrong, so literally there's no point. Except for being racist. I can't believe she can sit there and judge someone based on the color of skin and say, well, I'm not racist. You're just a radical leftist PC culture. It's just like, literally, I hate those people, and yet I'm agreeing with them because in this case they're actually correct.